Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Hello and welcome to Adventure Bike TV, where for a change I've managed to find some sunshine, but it is bitterly cold. Now, on the bike review over the last couple of months, we've had a small engine bike and a medium-sized engine bike. This month we've gone back to the bigger bikes, and we've got two of them.
No parts intrude into the max pannier. This ensures every inch of space can be used. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
Right, now, last year we test rode KTM's 1290 Super Adventure, which I was quite a fan of. And this year, KTM have invited us to the official press launch of the 1290 Super Adventure S and the 1090 Adventure. We are in Corsica for that, and being as what it's Corsica, it has been quite a long journey to get here. Right, well, you know, it's a tough life, but I guess somebody's got to do it. Now, as it is a press launch, we have got the official press conference to go to, so I'd better get going. Right, well, KTM have promised us an absolutely storming day of riding through the mountains of Corsica, and I suppose I'd better get my arse into gear and get out there. Right, let's get started with the 1290 and where this bike fits in the range. Take a breath and listen carefully. Last year we tested the 1290 Super Adventure. That's now the Super Adventure T. Long range tank, etc. Wait for it, it's for touring. At the end of February, KTM also launched the 1290 Adventure R over in Peru. And we are here in Corsica to test the 1290 Super Adventure S, which sits right between the two. Who'll be riding this? Well, it's the adventurer who really wants road-oriented sports performance, but who doesn't want to stop when the tarmac finishes. They'll be able to keep on going, but nothing too extreme. It's easy to stand back and admire this bike. Rugged good looks may be the phrase used to describe Jack Reacher, although, strictly speaking, I'm not convinced it works quite so well for Tom Cruise. Sorry, Tom. But it applies even better to the Adventure S. It's an evolution from the 1190 Adventure, and it works remarkably well, from pretty much any angle. It's definitely a major step forward from those odd front looks on last year's 1290 Super Adventure. When this bike was launched, there was a lot made about the new style split headlights. Well, it does split opinions, but there is a reason for it: the LED lights. You'll be right in thinking that LED stands for light emitting diode, but it also means a lot of heat, and that aluminium structure splitting the lights is both a heatsink and it's where the electronics sit. And they do need the electronics for the lights, as you'll be getting cornering lights in the package for your £1,299 for the basic bike. So there you go. I think the lights look great. As we've already come to expect, there's cornering ABS and the usual traction control, stability control and ABS. There's a few more electronic tweaks though. Motor slip regulation, which is the opposite of traction control. It will leave the throttle open just a fraction if you decelerate hard to avoid your rear wheel slipping. Slightly controversially, KTM have gone with cast wheels, which might seem a little out of place on the Adventure, but KTM never do anything unless they believe it gives better performance, and they've stuck with cast items here because it's such a sporty bike. But you can get spoke wheels as a power parts option if you really want them. Also new is the TFT screen, and it's a beaut. The tilt angle is adjustable, but not for avoiding glare of the sun. You don't need to worry. Out here in the Corsican sunshine, the TFT screen didn't suffer from any glare at all, although it was just a little bit distracting as it flicked between day and night colours as we rode through the shadowed valley side twisties. You get all the information you'd ever need, and there's even a couple of programmable shortcut buttons. When I think back to the old multi-strada LCD screen as a comparison, this is so far removed it's in another planetary system. Also in the cockpit there's a pocket for your mobile phone, complete with USB charging point. Not officially waterproof, but I was reliably informed by one of the other journos that it's a perfect fit for a 50-gram bag of rolling tobacco. Or your keyless ignition device. Screen adjustment is now one-handed. Not that you'll be thinking much about the screen when you're riding, because you'll be having way too much fun. 160 horsepower has no issues, hustling 250 kilos of dry weight on its 19-inch front and 17-inch rear wheels at shoulder socket wrenching levels of thrust. This bike is fast with a capital FAST. The S has shorter travel suspension than the R to lower the centre of gravity, and lower seat height from 890mm on the R to an adjustable 860 to 875 on the S. If you look at both bikes on the KTM website and switch between the pictures of these two, the differences in setup become far more apparent. The suspension is WP semi-active front and rear, allowing riders to select the best option for their load and conditions, from comfort, street, sport and off-road via the control menu. And just as I found on the Super Adventure last year, you can feel the difference in riding and handling straight away. My riding in the wide sweeping tarmac was genuinely flattered by the sport setting, whilst the broken up mountain lanes were a breeze using the off-road settings. Did this bike put a smile on my face? Did I feel a bit like an adventure sports riding god, even if I didn't necessarily ride like one? Did it soak up the good, the bad, the wet and the slippery conditions? Yes, yes and yes. Now to the 1090, and I had to start with a bit of a confession. In my obviously biased little head, I'd never really given the 1090 much thought or indeed due consideration. It was a bike that was there for anyone who couldn't handle a big brother or who didn't want to spend their money. Now, it's not got the same level of wizardry as a 1290. It's a bit of a Ronald Weasley to your Harry Potter. You sometimes forget about the less famous one, but you really shouldn't. No, really, you shouldn't. You see, after I rode it for the first time, this is what I thought. It might cost a whole £3 less than the 1290. It might have less wizardry, although it still has the multi-mode traction control and ABS as standard, but it does have 125 horsepower and weighs almost 10 kilos less than the 1290. And it is a lot of fun to ride. I'll get back to that in a second. So KTM are aiming this bike at somebody who wants performance but who doesn't necessarily want to pay the extra for all the electronic wizardry. The 1090 Adventure is of course the road bias model against the R version. It has 19-inch and 17-inch rear cast wheels, a 43mm upside down WP fork offering 185mm of travel, and a WP shock which is adjustable for preload and rebound damping, and which allows for 190mm of travel. So there's plenty to play with. You just can't do it from the cockpit. And you won't get the TFT screen with a 1090, it's just like looking at the cockpit of the old 1190 Adventure. But this bike doesn't really feel like it needs that level of user interface because it's just not what it's about. Whilst this bike makes 125 horsepower, which is 30 more than the current 1050, and 80 pounds-feet of torque, KTM will also be offering a 95 horsepower version, which can be restricted to 47 horsepower for the A2 licensing system. It shares the same steel treadless frame and 6-gallon tank as a 1290 and has a slipper clutch alongside the traction control, ABS and riding modes. The black frame and different decals ensure it will stand on its own 2 feet alongside the R version. So back to riding, and oh yes, the riding. So it might be a bit of a Ronald Weasley, perceived by some to stand in its mate's shadow, but it's not. If your definition of fun is being engaged in the riding, really working with the bike, really feeling the way it responds to your commands, then this bike is fun with friggity bells on it. And a cherry on top. And I wasn't alone in that opinion. Everyone else I spoke to on the weekend thought the same. I'm pretty sure I'd be more tired at the end of a day's riding on the 1090 than the 1290, but I wouldn't feel like I'd had any less of a great ride. KTM were keen to demonstrate their cornering lights, so they sent us out on one final ride. In the dark, obviously. The cornering lights were a little odd because I actually found them so subtle that I really wasn't aware of them at first. But then, as I made the effort to look for them, coming on at different levels depending on your lean angle, I became more aware of them. We were riding dark, twisty mountain roads and they were very noticeable as we flew around the bends. However, they do remain one thing on bikes that I'm just not 100% convinced about. Just like I'm not convinced about them in cars. A bit like the cruise control, I just remain unconvinced. Right, let me start by summing up the 1290. Now, in some ways this bike is pretty much what I expected it to be, and that is, I think, the most complete adventure sports bike I have ever ridden. That monstrous engine is just a joy to ride. It handles beautifully. All the electronic wizardry just makes it a dream, and it flatters you as a rider. It looks amazing, and I have just had the most fantastic time riding it today. Now, the 1090 Adventure, I think, really that was a surprise for me today, because in many respects I had expected it to be, well, you know, the little brother that was made for somebody who wasn't really man enough for the big boy's bike. But you know what? The combination of the lighter weight, 125 horsepower, it's physically just feels a little bit smaller, and it's so nimble around the corners. It's really the surprise package, I think, of today. Now, when I started the press day and the test rides today, I wasn't really expecting to be able to kind of test these bikes as competitors to each other as such, because they're really so different. You've got the huge electronic package, the bigger horsepower, it's a bigger physical bike, the 1290 compared to the 1090. However, if you compare them on the basis of fun, so that's where the line gets a bit more blurred. The 1090 is such a laugh to ride, and I would say it is in some respects a bit more engaging because you've got to work the gears a bit more. However, they are two different bikes and they do serve two masters. I think if you want to spend more and have the electronic packages, you go for the 1290. Otherwise, maybe the 1090, but they're both absolutely fantastic bikes. And I guess the question would be, would I have either of these two bikes in my garage? And on many levels, both of them would fit in there. However, I'm still waiting to test ride the R versions.
The Metal Mule Max pannier is the only pannier to use a silicon seal to ensure they're watertight to IP66 classification. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
Right, well, on that bombshell, which most certainly wasn't a crushing disappointment, it's time for our next segment, and it's completely new. It's Tom, Adventure Bike TV's producer and director, sharing some, but not all, of his expertise on film school.
Hello everyone, my name's Tom, I'm the producer of Adventure Bike TV and welcome to Film School. So we've been getting a lot of emails asking us about how to film your trip. Everything from what kit they should take to how to edit it to the best ways of composing shots. So we decided to do two things. First of all, we're going to be setting up a course that people can come on and learn the basics of filming on a budget on an adventure. And second of all, we're doing this segment, Film School. So recently I was asked to do an article for Nathan Millward's magazine that was given out at all the bike shows. And it was all about how to film your trip, my top 5 tips. So I'm not going to cover that this month, I'll cover it next month instead. But this month we're going to be looking at the fun stuff. We're going to be looking at a piece of kit. So we've been given a bit of kit by CVP.com, who are filmmaking specialists. And the kit they gave us is this. This is the Rider M, and it's a gimbal for your GoPro. So what does a gimbal do? Basically it stabilizes your camera. So as you or your bike move, the camera stays stable. This means you get some much better shots when using things like a GoPro. And it just means that your production values feel a lot better and a lot more professional. First things first, let's open it up and see what comes in the box. First thing you'll find in this very kind of Apple-like product box is an instruction manual. Next thing you'll find is the gimbal itself. 4 batteries. Now it only runs on 2, so you've got spares there as well. You'll find a little bag to keep it all in. You'll find a charger for the batteries, a USB charger for the battery, and it will charge directly to the gimbal itself. You'll find these 2 little wires here which are for connecting power to your GoPro. And you'll also find this, which is basically a selfie stick, but it's a very posh selfie stick. The first thing you'll notice is it has a pivoting head on here, and it has an extension which is lockable there. Now the first thing you'll notice is that when I move, the camera stays still. And it just means that as I move, you get a much more stable camera shot. And it has different modes. So if we press the button on the side here, now when we turn, it follows us with the turn, but makes the whole turn a lot smoother. And you're going to get a much more stable shot. So as your bike's leaning into a corner, you're going to see that the camera stays really nice and smooth. And the production values are great. So the first way I'm going to demonstrate how this works is I'm going to have a walk around the bike show in London. And as I walk around, I'll have this in one hand and I'll have a non-gimbaled GoPro in the other hand. And let's see if you can tell the difference, because I think you probably will. So the next thing I'm going to do is go and mount this to a vehicle. Now I'm going to mount this and next to it a GoPro without a gimbal, just to give you once again a comparison. Okay, so I think we'll agree that all worked really well. One bit of advice, make sure when you're mounting it, it's a really solid mounting point. So it's really sturdy, because although this will take in the undulations, if you're shaking, you're still going to get that bit of shake. This will correct it a bit, but it can't do everything. So the next thing we're going to do is mount it to a bicycle. We're going to again have a normal non-gimbaled GoPro next to it, and we'll see how that goes. So we decided to use a cycle bike rather than a motorbike because you're getting a lot more movement there. Yes, obviously a motorcycle will lean into the corners, but the great thing about a bicycle is that you get a lot of left and right movement, you get a lot of up and down movement, and hopefully that showed you exactly how great a gimbal can be. I genuinely believe this is probably the most versatile GoPro gimbal that you can get at the moment, mainly because rather than having all the batteries in a separate pack which is joined by wire, or having a permanent handle on it so that you can have the batteries in, this is all completely self-contained. I've also been really impressed with how long the batteries last. You can also power your GoPro off this unit if your GoPro batteries are running low. All round just a fantastic bit of kit. Plus you get the app, which is fantastic for controlling it. You can do up, down, left, right. You can control it all. You can check your battery life. It's just an all-round great little package. And for £239 from cvp.com, I don't think you can go wrong. It's going to massively improve the shots you're doing. And just to be able to mount a gimbal on a helmet, for example, just makes it so much more versatile. So yeah, fantastic bit of kit. We're going to continue using it throughout the series. We'll be using it a lot more when we do tracking shots in the back of a car. We're going to be using it as Graham's helmet and all sorts. So you'll see a lot more of this, but definitely an awesome bit of filming kit. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed Film School and hope you're looking forward to more of these in future episodes. If you want to get one of these gimbals, we'll leave the link in the description down below so you can go through and buy it. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Right, well Tom will be back next month with some more top tips and tech about how to film your adventure. Now it's back to Adventure Bike TV's Short Film Awards. Now last month we showed our third place film, now it's time for the second place film. And please remember that when we judged these awards, it was about the films that told the best stories.
Let the adventure begin. Yeah, look at that.
Oh, that's a pretty sweet arch.
How crazy is this road, huh? This is gonna suck. You are so adorable. Look at you. Hi.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
3,000 foot drop to my death? Yeah, sure, no problem. Steady, steady. All right, we got the tents up. Bikes are fully loaded. You ready to drive 4,000 miles and see every national park in the Southwest?
Absolutely.
First stop, Monument Valley. This is where Forrest Gump actually runs down in the movie.
Hey, that looks like a great spot for a picture.
This is truly the epitome of every Western movie. Imagine climbing one of those monuments. Are you stuck?
This sand is quite the challenge on a fully loaded bike.
Oh yeah, now that's a shot. Here, put your helmet on before it hits you.
Oh no, is that hail?
Yep, definitely hailing in the desert. In some bipolar weather. Oh great, now we got mud roads.
These roads are not fun.
I can't believe those girls recognized me from YouTube. Wow, and this is a tree struck by lightning. That's amazing. And there's like 100 of them all over this place.
I'm gonna reach out and grab your hand.
This is not the easiest thing to do, but... Alright, that's good.
Sorry.
Alright, we made it to the Overland Expo in Flagstaff. This is where world travelers unite. What do you want? Just my name? Words of wisdom?
This guy inspired me. Awesome.
I am honored.
I am honored.
No, man, thank you. Very
Thank
cool.
you.
So sometimes you got good weather, and sometimes you got horrible weather. Look at that. The construction work smells wonderful, doesn't it? Here you go, buddy. You're an honorary world explorer now. Well, if you ever wondered how I wash my clothes on the road, here you go. Next on the list, Zion National Park.
There's so much beautiful landscape here. Wow.
Cool tunnel. There's so many tunnels around here. Here's that gorgeous view coming out of the canyon. Here it is.
Wow.
You see that? That's a 5,000 foot peak we're going to climb. ...2,000 miles down, 2,000 more to go. Hills National Park. Here we go. Don't slip. Don't slip. Don't slip. Oh, alright, made it. How crazy is this road, huh? Oh, do I see an arch over there? What an odd yet unique sight. I think that's potash they're mining. I think it's used for fertilizer. So Rosie, what did you think about our trip?
You know, it was pretty amazing. We got to see incredible scenery, breathtaking views that I never thought I'd ever see. And it was just overall amazing experience.
Thank you for the wonderful company.
Right, well, next month we will be showing you the winner, and in subsequent shows we'll be showing you our awards for Best Cinematography, Sound and Editing. Now, it's time for a break.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Quite a few years ago, when I was planning my adventure down through West Africa, I was struggling with how to get through Mauritania, and I went to Horizons Unlimited, which gave me some fantastic advice about how to do it. Now this month, Under the Visor for me is quite a special one, because we got to meet Grant and Susan Johnson, who founded Horizons Unlimited.
James Cargo Motorcycle Shipping sponsors Under the Visor.
I'm Grant Johnson of Horizons Unlimited.
And I'm Susan Johnson, also Horizons
Unlimited. I started riding when I was 16, 16th birthday. Got on the bike and started riding. Was racing at 18. Still don't know how my mother managed to allow me to do that. Get her, actually have her sign the competition license. That was quite amazing. Racing, motocross, won the Canadian Nationals in '68. It's kind of enough, okay, work, business, trying to make some money, got into sporting goods shops, started running a couple of sporting goods shops in Vancouver, and quite a few things since then. Have a multitude of careers. Went from the sporting goods shop to photography, became an IT consultant, was teaching Lotus Notes, a few other things, created a photography program. What else did I do? I know there's more in there.
I'm sure there is, dear, but you're already
That's a lot.
sounding really old.
Yes, way too old.
I'm originally a chartered accountant and got into financial consulting and then general kind of business consulting. And I got to be in my early 30s and thought, you know, the long hours and the rest of it was like, what am I doing with my life? And my dad actually passed away, and he was only 66, and I thought, well, I don't want to end up dying before I can actually do some things that I want to do. So when I met Grant, the conversation was about what do you want to do with your life? And the first question was, do you want kids? And we didn't, so that was fine. And then I wanted to travel, and he had this idea of going around the world on a motorcycle. And I'd never been on a motorcycle, ever. And most of my family and friends thought that that was like, motorcycles are inherently dangerous, and you're going to try and go traveling on them. Like, so we had a bit of resistance to overcome. But we started traveling together, and he broke me in. It was supposed to be 3 years around the world.
Okay.
And we got as far as Panama from Vancouver, and we had run out of money. And we had taken 9 months for a trip that a lot of people do in 2 weeks. But that's when we realized that we had to figure out a different way to travel. So I ended up working in consulting firms. We moved to Australia, and on the way to Australia, we shipped the bike to New Zealand and toured. And then we worked in Australia for like 5-6 years.
Stint in Singapore?
Stint in Singapore. And eventually we kind of went, well, if we're going to get traveling again, we need to be thinking about this. And then the company that I worked for, Lotus, got bought by IBM. And I had 3 years worth of stock options, which were worthless until IBM bought Lotus, and then they were worth money. And they said, well, you can just roll it over into IBM stock. I said, no, we'll take the cash. So IBM funded the rest of our travels, which ended up being 2 years full-time around the world, from north to south. Europe, Africa, South America, North America.
Including Antarctica,
And
although we didn't get the bike to Antarctica. Well, we'd been sending emails back and forth to our family from '87. We were on CompuServe originally in 1987 and had a laptop with us. So we sent emails and we accumulated emails, and then in '97 we'd done Europe, Africa, and we were in Ushuaia waiting for the boat to go to Antarctica. And CompuServe sent us an email and said, you can have a website. And we said, what's a website? It's '97. So we checked that out, and that sounded cool. So while we were waiting for the boat, which was a week, we put together a quickie website, and that was Horizons Unlimited. It was online.
It was basically our pictures and our stories up to that point.
Yeah. Just a blog, basically.
Just a blog, and we kind of said, and this is the beginning of a book, which never got written, of course.
No, the website is the book. Well, that was very interesting, because in those days there was nothing else at all, but people managed to find us and started asking us questions. How did you do this? How did you do that? And how did you get in there? And what's a carnet? And all kinds of questions. And I got tired of answering the same question again and again and again, so started a forum. And we had heard about a lot of other travelers that we'd met along the way and that were writing to us and asking us and telling about what they were doing. So then we started the newsletter, and it wasn't very long before it was a full-fledged going concern. By 2000, it was full on.
And blogs. We started hosting other people's blogs, like the Forwards and Greg Fraser, and eventually it was like hundreds of blogs. But it all started very small. And then Grant had spare time after we finished our travels, and we moved to England for the first time. I was working, and he had spare time, so it was sort of.
Well, I was supposed to be working on photographs. I was doing stock photography for Comstock in Canada at the time, and I was putting together all the photographs and getting them sorted and categorized and sent off and all the rest of that. But along the way, people kept sending me emails and asking me questions. So the website just took over and became everything. We were leaving the UK and going back to Canada for family reasons, and we put out a note on the website that we're going home, and we're going to have a little going away party. People came from as far away as Norway for the weekend to say goodbye. That was truly fantastic, great feeling, and somebody said, you should do this again next year. Well, yeah, great, but we're not going to be here. So Glenn Roberts put his hand up, and he said, yep, I'll do it. Now that's Hub UK. It's the way it goes. It's been going strong ever since.
So this year we will have done over 20 events in, I don't know, a dozen countries anyway, which is pretty unique. I mean, there are people doing events, in one place or a couple of places, but the challenges of trying to run events completely with volunteers in all those places has been the last 7 or 8 years. That's really been what we focused on and growing that.
People have asked us that before, and we can never answer it.
It's kind of like you have the best part of each continent.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time in Norway, for example, in Europe. In Africa, we spent a ton of time in Tunisia, and then again in Namibia, and probably 5-6 weeks in each. And they're not really very big countries, but that kind of reflected, the things there were to see. By the time we got to the bottom of Africa, we were starting to feel like we were running out of money again, so we had to come home and work, and that's when Grant got his light bulb. South America is kind of on the way back to Canada.
Well, if you look at a map, it is.
Look at a map of the world. So I was like, okay, but we weren't expecting South America. We probably just race up the Pan American Highway. It's paved all the way, right? But that was an El Nino year, 1998.
The big El Nino year.
Big El Nino year, and literally thousands of miles of the Pan American Highway were flooded, and many hundreds of bridges were destroyed. So it turned out to be a lot longer and slower than we had expected. So that was kind of interesting.
It was an adventure, for sure.
Adventure.
Yeah. But in South America, which country? I loved Ecuador. It's just amazing. And then Colombia, I was there for, I think, 4 days. That was in the days when it was very dangerous to be out, and motorcycles or people generally were being kidnapped on a regular basis, and a foreigner was very dangerous. So it was in and out as quick as I could get. But it was beautiful, spectacular country. And today we can highly recommend it. People are going there, and all the reports we get back are fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing, so we definitely got to go back there.
But what we've learned from all our travels is that there's hardly any place where we would say, well, don't go there, because most places it's just people, and the people are wonderful wherever you go. If you approach them with the right attitude, they will respond that way. And so there isn't a place, as I said, maybe Syria.
Currently, there's a few places. There's always a war or something stupid going on. But other than those places, people are people.
Just go.
Just
go. Tell everyone you're going to go. Set a date, and then you have to go because it's too embarrassing not to. That's kind of what we did. Set a date, told all our friends, and it's like, okay, well, now you have to go. But you can overplan, overthink it, and in fact, if you do too much planning, you'll end up terrifying yourself. Because I can remember when we were about to go into Africa. Africa's not a place that most of us are familiar with when we first were there, and that was like 1996. And I remember, I'd researched all of the possible tropical diseases and insects, all of that stuff. And it was kind of like, holy shit, we're going to die if we go there, right? No.
And we got all the inoculations, everything you can possibly get.
So you can get yourself to the point where you think, well, this is just too hard. So you just have to take a leap.
I think the most important thing to remember is that you're going places where people are already. There isn't anywhere that there isn't anybody. So remember that there are people there, they live there, they have houses, they have families, they have stores where they buy stuff, they buy food, they buy clothing, they buy petrol. It's all easy.
They buy toothpaste, they shampoo.
Yeah, you don't have to take it all with you.
Yeah.
It's people tend to go off with way too much stuff. And the number one refrain we hear is, I just sent another box of stuff home that I thought I needed and I didn't.
That I paid
another
money
box.
For.
Yeah, that's a month's travel in those 2 boxes they've sent home. So take a lot less, and remember, there's people. Horizons Unlimited Mountain Madness, it's back. We just ran one in Spain this year after having done it, 5 years in the Pyrenees?
Yeah.
We did 5 years in the Pyrenees, then we took a couple of years off because we were back in Canada and it was too hard logistically. But we're back in Spain now in Teruel, Aragon. We found some amazing riding. We're working with Simon Rice, also known as the Spanish Biker, and he knows the area very, very well, and we're working with him to get it all set up. We ran it this year. hugely successful in that everybody that was there said, yeah, it's as good or better than the Pyrenees. Fantastic riding, had a great time. And one of the really cool things about Aragon is that it's the least populated area in Spain. There's nobody there, the place is deserted. Several guys said to me, I never saw anybody out there. Like, not a single person on the roads, the trails, nothing. It's fantastic. So great riding, and we'll be back next year in May with the 2017 edition.
You want to mention the fact that we did one in the Canadian Rockies?
Yes, we did one in the Canadian Rockies. The Canadian Rockies was spectacular. We sold out in 6 weeks for that event. We capped it at 160 riders and sold out in 6 weeks. So we were very impressed with that.
It's a slightly different audience than the Travelers meeting. You know, because the Travelers meetings are really, I mean, they're a fairly low-priced event, mostly volunteers, and the idea is that anyone can come, and if people are traveling and they've got a story to tell, they don't have to pay admission, they can just come and tell their story. So it's very inclusive. This event, the Navigation Challenge, is kind of more geared to guys who have a nice bike that they can go off-road with and they want to play. And so it's an opportunity to test. They're not necessarily going to run in the Dakar, but they can actually compete and have a challenge and have a good time for a few days. So we're hoping to do more of those. We're actually hoping to do one in South Africa. We're working on one in the U.S. in Maryland and
the Himalayas.
And the Himalayas. So we're hoping to do 4 or 5 of those every year, but that'll take 2 or 3 years at least to build up to it.
Go ahead.
Adventure is a state of mind, in my opinion. I'll use a couple of examples. For British people, an adventure might be going to France. It's a different culture, it's a different language. They drive on the other side of the road, so that's scary, and they got to cross water to get there. So I mean, in the U.S., it's like I know people who've come to our U.S. events who tell me that their friends are convinced that if they go into Mexico, they will die the moment they go over the border. That is the message that they're hearing all the time. So for them to overcome that fear, and all those messages, I mean, that's an adventure. The fact that they don't get killed the moment they go over the border is like, whew, okay.
Wow, I did it.
So what's an adventure is really in the mind.
Yeah. One person's adventure can be somebody else's so
Walk
what?
in the park.
It depends on where you're at. One of the phrases we use a lot is you need to get to your own comfort level. When you're comfortable, when you feel ready to go. Get out there and do it. And the adventure is doing something a little bit more than you've done before. And that's an adventure. And that could be, for somebody who's been riding for 3 months, it could be going to the next city. First time on a new motorcycle, out on the highway. Hey, that's an adventure if you've never done it. So I'm pretty easy on the term of adventure. It's what you make of it.
James Cargo Motorcycle Shipping sponsors Under the Visor.
What you've seen there is just a snippet of the full hour of the interview that we did with Grant and Susan, and just a few apologies for the sound quality. We were filming that in the middle of a thunderstorm. Now it's time for Top Tech.
Hello and welcome to this month's Top Tech. On this month's Top Tech, we're going to be looking at the Black Eye smartphone lenses. As you can see, the Black Eye lenses come neatly packaged with simple information. Having unboxed the lens, you'll see that we've got the neat lens clip, which takes 2 different lenses, and we get the lens caps, the lens cleaner, and the storage bag. The Black Eye lenses work simply by attaching the universal lens clip over your smartphone camera and simply screwing on the attachment that you want. Firstly, we'll see the macro lens. The macro lens gives us 20 times magnification, so let's have a look at some real detail. The focusing range is between 6 to 12 millimeters. To swap the lenses, we simply unscrew the macro lens, and it's time for the wide angle. The wide angle lens gives us a 160-degree angle of view. Say hi, Tom. So in summary, the black eye lenses give us some great extra options for our photography when we're on our adventures in the great outdoors. If you'd like to win this month's Top Tech, then answer this simple question. How many times magnification does the macro lens give us? Is it A5, B10, C15 or D20? To enter, visit adventurebiketv.com and click on the competition link.
Right, now following our adventures from Johannesburg through Lesotho and onto the zip wires, it's now the third and final part of our adventure in South Africa. Previously on our South African adventure. The next day was wet, very wet. Tom and I headed off early to get some footage, but the sand and the rain made for very difficult riding conditions. Soon the whole team caught up and we started what turned out to be a long day of amazing vistas. In a single day, we passed through jungle and large open plains. We saw small villages and big towns, and not forgetting the wildlife and of course the people. Sadly, it was all accompanied by lots and lots of rain, right through to reaching our hotel in the evening. The hotel we stopped at yesterday evening is a little unusual, only in that it's in an area which is exceptionally German, so town name, hotel name are all very, very German. The hotel stands out for me because apparently the most recent owner was murdered here 2 or 3 years ago. The weather appears to have improved a little bit, so we have some blue stuff in the sky and some yellow stuff shining down on us. Water was pooling in just almost like lakes across the grass yesterday, and we were concerned that we'd even be able to make it through some of the roads today. But it's warmer, it's stopped raining, so fingers crossed, the riding will be a bit better today. The bonus of riding in a group, but it not being an organised tour, was the ability to be able to mix things up. So the morning started on some sandy roads, and Grant and Susan jumped on the Africa Twin to give it a go. Then just before lunch, Johan and I went off to do some more off-road, which you will have seen in the Africa Twin review, and Tom went with the others for a spot of lunch, which I'm sure he said was in Switzerland, but I must have got my wires crossed, seeing as Switzerland was about 13,000 kilometres away.
So we're at our lunch point today. We are at a place called Little Switzerland. I'm in front of the camera because Graham's gone off to do some hardcore manly off-roading. So instead you get to talk to me. We're at this amazing place called Little Switzerland. You can see the view is spectacular. And sounds like some thunder and rain's coming in. So yeah, time for lunch.
Whilst I was off playing some dirt tracks, Tom and the rest of the group's day has suddenly changed from clear sky to dust storms. The weather in South Africa can be very extreme and can change exceptionally quickly, and as quickly as the wind arrived, it had died again and the sun returned.
In the Free State province, we just entered the Golden Gate game reserve here, and I'm taking the boys to the Basotho village. It's a place where you can see how traditional the Basothos lived, and they're also going to make some traditional beer for us. We'll have a sip or two, and hopefully that will give us a lot of energy and power for the evening.
The final day of riding started in the foothills. I think you could pretty much summarise by saying it's a stunning place, and we've just been told you can walk up from where we are now up onto the hill, and there's a hide with a glass front in it, although on the other side of it it's black. And they put out carcasses so all the birds of prey come down, but we're a bit early for that. And then there's hiking trails, 3 to 7 days where you can walk out into the hills, and they have little huts, so you just take a sleeping bag with you. I mean, you could just come and spend a whole adventure holiday just in this one place. Is there a better way of starting the day than seeing a baby zebra whilst riding your motorcycle? Well, probably not. As a bit of a treat, and as our last stop on our very, very last day of this adventure, we've come to the Historic Motorcycle Museum. And there's a bit of a rumour floating around that at some point in the past, apparently it was a bit of a brothel. What a place! So many bikes crammed into such a small area. New and old, race bikes and adventure bikes, custom bikes, and all under one roof. Plus, this museum had live music, a bar and a swimming pool. What a fantastic treat for the end of our trip. The next day, before our flight home, there was one last surprise for us. It was so amazing to be this close to these majestic animals that I just couldn't think of any words that would do justice to the experience of stroking a lion. Justin's relationship with the big cats was really something to behold. It felt like we were witnessing something exceptionally special.
Hi guys, this is Justin here from Jugamara Predator Park out in South Africa. I'm here with Adventure Bike TV. They're coming to have a look at our park. We are on a temporary basis here with the cats as we lost our previous park due to liquidations and banks and very greedy people. but we are planning on relocating the cats and giving the cats what they deserve and what they were used to, with nice big pools, big enclosures, jungle gyms, night rooms and all of that. So if you guys would like to help, just look for us up on Facebook. It's under Jugumara Predator Park, and we'll see you guys here soon. Cheers.
And so ends our time in South Africa. We must say a few very big thank yous. Kevin, who made us the offer of attending Horizons Unlimited South Africa and who has been a great benefactor to Adventure Bike TV. Kevin, you're a true friend of us and the show. Cobus, helping organise the trip and for accommodation at your Elgro River Lodge. To ADA, who provided the Honda Africa Twins. Daly BMW, who provided Tom's bike and also the bike for Grant and Susan. To everyone on the trip, everyone who helped and everyone we met. Thank you, South Africa. We will see you again soon. As always, thank you for watching Adventure Bike TV. I'm now going to go off and explore the Second World War gun emplacement behind me. See you next month.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.